Hello and welcome to Philosophy 125, Philosophy of Science. My name is Randy Mays. I'm the instructor for the course. I think you'll find this course is straightforwardly designed, but this orientation video will help you get situated within it very quickly. So what you're looking at right now, of course, is the Canvas portal to this course. Canvas is our learning management system. And you've already been here because this is where you would have clicked on the orientation video. What you see here is just a little different than what you see when you log into Canvas, because this is the instructor view of the course, but the content is essentially the same. Most important thing to understand from the beginning here is this is not the place where the content of the course is administered. It's only the place where you do your testing, and you do all that under the modules link, which I'll click on here. This is where all of your testing activity occurs. You'll see that the very first thing that you'll do in this course after becoming completely acquainted with the requirements is to take a syllabus test. This test isn't here to irritate you. It's just to make sure that you really understand the requirements of this course before getting engaged in it. And there is also a link for your grades. So the content of this course is delivered here at my website, grandolphmays.com. And if you go to that website, you will come to this page and you will see your course somewhere. Now, this course is Philosophy 125 sections 1 and 3 for people taking the 15-week course, which is the standard course. This link is for people who are taking Philosophy 125 through the College of Continuing Education. And if the page you're looking at is a little bit different because I cut this video for a previous semester, you'll still be able to find the section that you're looking for, including the summer session, if 125 happens to be running in the summer. So currently your class has 4 important links. There's the What's Up link, the syllabus link, the schedule link, and the journal sign up link. So the What's Up link is a blog. It's a place that you should check once a day to find out if there are any new or interesting developments in the course. Typically, there will not be, but when there are new developments, they're going to be very important for you to be aware of, and I don't like to bother you by sending out constant emails through Canvas. So it's going to be up to you to check this course check this link on a regular basis. If we could click on it right now, you can see that there is just the one welcome message explaining a couple of important things. They may not be relevant to future iterations of this course before I make another orientation video, so I'm not going to review them all here. Just please read them on your own. One thing that is pretty constant, though, is that you need to go to the link to sign up for your online journal. This is actually the journal sign up link right here. You want to click on that and enter your name as instructed, and also provide a Gmail account. That's going to be a mail account that is actually with Google, or in other words, a Google Gmail account, or an email account that you have registered to use with Google. So very shortly after you provide me with this information, I will be sharing with you in your Google Drive a journal that looks like this. It will have your name on the top, and it's pre-formatted with a table of contents. So your very first entry into this journal will be Module 1. The dates on this journal are not accurate, but they will be updated for your particular class. And the Module 1 Journal questions are here. You'll be reading these questions after engaging the relevant material and providing answers to them in the spaces provided. I read your journal entries weekly. I comment on them in the sidebar like that. And you are more than welcome to respond to these comments. There's no requirement for you to do so, but you should never, ever delete the comments or resolve them. The journal is a relatively small part of your grade. There are 230 points available in this course, and the journal is worth 30 points, but it's a very significant part because it allows you essentially to make up for less than optimal test performances, which just about everybody has at one point or another. And it's actually not possible to get an A in this course or an A- without doing the journal. So returning to the website, we have the syllabus. This is where you need to really spend some quality time. And I'm not going to go over the syllabus in this video in any length at all, except to inform you of a couple of highlights that might just be relevant to your decision whether to even continue in the class. So the most important thing to understand is, first of all, that this is a fully online course, and it is a largely self-paced course. There are mandatory requirements for 3 of the tests. Test 2 and Test 6 and Test 10 have mandatory due dates, and the journal has mandatory due dates. But for the most part, you're able to set your testing schedule and your study schedule according to your needs. Of course, this is a good thing for many people, but it's a bad thing for some who aren't self-motivated. So one of the things you really need to ask yourself early is whether you have the discipline to really engage constructively in a self-paced course. The people who struggle in this course are people who don't work on a daily basis, don't work according to the advised quizzing and testing schedule, and get very far behind and then find themselves needing to rush through the material. And it's very hard to be honest with yourself about your own abilities and your own schedule in the beginning of the semester when everything seems possible. But I encourage you to do so, and do so with the understanding that this course is really quite a lot of work. It's not a terribly difficult course if you have the time to put into serious study, but it's an impossible course if you do not. So in addition to the journal, the syllabus identifies the 2 other kinds of assessments that occur in this course. There are quizzes. Quizzes are study guides. They are there to help you do well on the test, and they're worth 0 points. Quizzes you can take over and over again, and you should take over and over again until you're doing extremely well on them before you ever engage a test. The tests, there's 10 of them, 1 for each of the 10 modules, and they're each worth 20 points. Typically, they contain 40 questions. So let's just pop back over to Canvas really quick and look at how this works. As I said before, all the quizzes and tests are on the module page. Your very first test is a syllabus test. And again, what you're going to see here is just different than what you see when you arrive. When you arrive, you'll see that the syllabus test is the only thing that is available for you to take. These modules have to be dealt with sequentially, so until you've scored a 36 a 32 out of a possible 36 points on the syllabus test, you're able to take this over and over again, then the Module 1 material will not be available to you. And until you take the Module 1 test, which you may only take one time, all module tests, except for an optional retake at the end of the semester can only be taken once. Until you take the Module 1 test, the Module 2 material will not be available to you. So if you just look at Module 1, though, you'll see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 quizzes and then a test. The quizzes cover material that is delivered to you on the schedule page, which is the last page we will visit. And although this is not the case in Module 1, because it's a very introductory chapter, in Module 2, you'll see that the quizzes are actually indexed to the textbook or the lectures. So your textbook, which is Worldviews by Richard DeWitt, is, of course, organized into chapters. And so the chapters are, there's quizzes given over the chapters of the textbook, and there's quizzes given over the corresponding lecture. The reason these are different is because in the lecture, I often stress things that are not in the textbook, or I present the material in a slightly different way than the author does. Okay, so once again, if we go back to my main web page, find that the last link we want to look at is the schedule link, which is right here. And this is where all of the content for the class is administered. So on the very top, you'll see repeated links that are on the main web page, the What's Up link and the course syllabus. And there's also another link for the text study questions. And these are ways of helping you determine whether or not you're prepared for the textbook-related quizzes. So I give you a page here corresponding to each module in each chapter that ask you specific questions about the reading. So if you click on chapter 1, it'll just go right down to specific questions about chapter 1. So finally, let's take a quick look at the material in the table. And let me do this in a way that suggests a constructive way to engage the material. So the first column just identifies the module you're working at. The second column simply identifies the chapter of the textbook that you'll be working on. Or as in the beginning here, there is no reading. It just says intro. You can read the introduction of the textbook, of course, but I'm not actually testing you on that. And then we see corresponding lectures and lecture slides. So in this column are all of the online lectures. So these are all links, okay, 1, 2, 3. When you click on these links, they will take you directly to YouTube, which is where almost all of the videos are provided. I say almost because very occasionally I find that I need to put a video behind the Canvas firewall in order to prevent it from being silenced by YouTube. And in this case, if you scroll down to chapter 18, you'll see a slightly odd configuration where it says 18 or 18. Now this may not be the case for you. It really depends on what semester you're in. But in this particular semester, spring 2019, for the 15-week session people, I have 2 different links going to the different sections of the course simply because the video is within the Canvas environment. So one of these links will work for you. And if what I'm saying to you doesn't make any sense because chapter 18 seems to just have look like any other chapter, that don't worry about it. Okay, so I provide all of the PowerPoint slides for every lecture I provide. And I think this is helpful as a way of reviewing lectures without necessarily having to go back to them. But there's going to be a strong temptation for you to simply use the lecture slides because you don't like sitting through my boring presentation. I need to really discourage you from doing that. The slides don't contain all the dynamics that are presented in the lectures. In other words, when you look at some of the slides, you're going to see things where there are thought bubbles overlaid with other thought bubbles, and you also won't hear a lot of the videos that are playing within the presentations. So do use the slides as a way of checking your comprehension after you've engaged the lectures, but don't depend on them as a substitute for listening to and engaging the lectures fully. So once you get into this course and start listening to the lectures I provide, you'll notice that most of them begin with me doing something that is kind of silly. Lots of students enjoy this, and lots of students think it is completely puerile and silly and find it very annoying. So if you're in the latter group, you can feel free to simply fast forward through this. So let me just click on one of the videos to give you a sense of how you'll experience this. So this is the beginning of the video for the module, for the chapter 2 lecture on the nature of truth. It begins with me in my study at home doing silly things. You can easily fast forward through this if you like, where we begin talking about the material in the course. And I tend to avoid saying very much that is not explicitly written, but if I do and you're not getting it, you can always turn on the closed captions, which are very effective these days. The other thing to note is that just like with the textbook study questions, there are study questions for lectures as well, but these occur at the end of each video. So if you fast forward to the end of this video, you'll see that it ends with a series of study questions which are presented to you silently. And these are questions that you should be able to answer adequately after having engaged the video. And if you don't, what you need to do is go back and listen to it again. So the length of these videos varies. They can be as short as 10 minutes and they can be as long as 25, but they average around 15 to 18 minutes. Okay, the next column says supplemental material for journals, and this is very important. The journal questions on the page that I showed you earlier relate to this column specifically. So almost all of the questions on the journal will ask you something about material that is presented here. You can see that these are all hyperlinked, and they link to sometimes interviews, sometimes YouTube videos, sometimes TED Talks, and you need to engage these when you are answering your questions in the journal. It's going to be very apparent to me if you try to answer the questions without engaging this material, either on the basis of your experience or off the top of your head or by trying to read something that sounds similar on Wikipedia. You need to be making reference to what's actually occurring in this material to show that you've really engaged the material well to get a passing grade on your journal entries. And finally, in the remaining columns, we have simply a list of advised dates for staying on track with the quizzes. So this really just amounts to, taking a quiz every other day or so, which means, of course, studying both the book and the lecture material on a daily basis. And then in the penultimate column, we have the module test, both mandatory and advised dates. So the mandatory dates are in red, the first one being module 2, the second one being module 6, and the last one being module 10 and the optional retake during finals week. So you may be wondering why there are any mandatory dates, and the reason is essentially to give you some checkpoints to make sure you're keeping up with the material and not getting too far behind. So I have the module 2 date as a mandatory date just because I know the first couple of weeks for you are often crazy and take a while for you to get situated. One thing you're going to want to know is what happens if you miss a mandatory testing date. And the answer is that nothing happens immediately. The test will still be available for you to take, but when you take it late, you will get 0 points on it. Now, the points that you get on the test will actually show up, but it will be flagged as late and it will be eventually changed to 0 manually by me. You cannot skip module 2 and just go to module 3. You do have to take this test to get to the module 3 material, as I explained before. And as I also explained before, there is one opportunity at the end of the semester to retake a module test. So missing one mandatory date isn't necessarily catastrophic, though it is certainly highly inadvisable. If you miss one of these, you can return to it and retake it. Now note, of course, that would be to use your one optional retake on a test that you missed rather than just one that you did poorly on. Okay, and the final column, we have the journal entry due dates, and you'll note that these are all mandatory dates. When you read the syllabus, you'll see that it is possible to turn the journal's entries in late, up to 24 hours late, but you need to abide by specific rules for doing that. I'm going to leave it to you to find out what those rules are. And you'll see that the journal date is typically 2 days after the testing date. Testing dates typically are on Fridays, and journal dates are typically on Sundays. Now, if you're thinking, wow, Friday and Sunday are very inconvenient dates for me, that's all right. Just do them earlier. These are the deadlines, but there is absolutely nothing at all that prevents you from working ahead in this course. So this is one of the nice features of the self-paced design, is if you know that you have a lot of work coming up in other courses and you won't be able to work on this course for, say, a week, then you can work very hard to get ahead to make your life easier for the rest of your work schedule. Okay, so let me just finish up by suggesting to you that the way you want to proceed in studying this course is to engage the textbook study questions. Afterwards, go to the textbook quiz, take the quiz until you are scoring perfectly or nearly perfectly. Then return to the online lecture. Engage the lecture, engage the study questions associated with that lecture, return to Canvas, take the corresponding lecture quiz until you have achieved the same high score, and continue through the module in that way until you have arrived at the Module 2 test. Before taking the Module 2 test, I strongly advise reviewing all of the quizzes again to make sure that you know them very well. As I mentioned in the syllabus, the Module 2 test, or the module test generally, will contain many questions that are identical to questions that occur in the quizzes, but it will also contain many questions that sound similar or are similar to questions in the quizzes, but are somewhat different. These are not changed in order to trick you into putting the wrong answer. They should not be tricky if you really understand the material, but they will trip up people who are trying to learn the quiz answers without really understanding the content. So when you're taking the module tests, you're going to want to make sure that you're reading the questions very carefully and not simply assuming they are exactly the same question that you've seen before. And a final point to note with respect to both the quizzes and the tests is that these quiz questions and test questions are being drawn from question pools. So the quizzes and the tests are not the same all of the time. They're being drawn from relevant pools. So when you retake the quizzes, you will find that they are somewhat different each time, which is a good reason for taking the quizzes multiple times, even if you do very well the first time. And the tests, although their questions are drawn from the same pool, they're drawn randomly from that pool, and so not everybody takes precisely the same test. And the order of the questions is entirely unpredictable. Okay, so this concludes the orientation video. I hope this has helped you a little bit. If you have any remaining questions, please email me directly. Never hesitate to contact me, and never hesitate to follow up if I don't answer you quickly or if I don't answer you adequately. There's only one thing that I want to caution you about in communicating, and this is not because I am a particularly prickly person or difficult to be around, but many students, especially new students, are just not familiar with the proper way to send emails to professors. So always be sure that you are sending me a professional email, not something that would, for example, be appropriate to texting with your friends. And to help you in this task, I've provided this link, How to Communicate with Your Instructor, which actually goes to our department webpage, and which provides very clear instructions on how to send emails to any professor on campus. Okay, so thanks for watching this, and I hope you enjoy the course.